biggest challenges for any organization today is managing talent. To put this in context and address the challenges here, Birla Institute of Management Technology recently organized a roundtable in Mumbai on leading the new way for HR with the theme of reimagining performance appraisals.
Over the last 4 years, we have organized 17 roundtables on different themes across various metros in India and received tremendous response from the HR fraternity in all places. I would now like to invite Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director, Birla Institute of Management Technology, to deliver the welcome note.
On behalf of BIMTech and our partners, National HRD Network, Deloitte and Bloomberg's TV, I have great pleasure in welcoming the distinguished panelists in the HR Roundtable and all those stalwarts of the industry who are part of today's deliberations. Performance review time brings excitement and dread in the workplace. The dread comes in because for many employees, the yearly review is the only time they receive meaningful feedback on their performance, good or bad. Performance reviews can be emotionally fraught, and they take up a lot of time and energy that contributes very little to the bottom line. But in truth, the performance review system, the metric of choice in most businesses for years and at times, an employee's only indication of his or her value, has become a major point of contention between many employees and their bosses. A lot of companies are now discovering that their current performance discussions are focused primarily on an employee's pay level rather than on useful feedback, coaching, and improvement needs. I look forward to knowing the views of our distinguished panelists on this pertinent issue. Thank you.
Now may I request Dr. Vishali Dongri to please join me on stage for our keynote session.
It gives me great pleasure, and it's a complete honor to introduce the topic today, which is on performance management. Many people are talking about it. Globally, a lot of changes are happening in this area. In India also, many people are trying to understand what are the possible changes one can bring in. It is a little less understood reinvention, because when you're talking about performance management, it is not just moving away from bell curve. It is far more than that, or even probably not just normalization and positive skewedness and negative ones. So it's far, far intense than that. It is bringing a complete turnaround in the way you are thinking about performance management. You need to change the way you are measuring. It's not so much about KPIs, scorecards, and then having the year-end measurement. What Deloitte does, and others also, like Cisco, Deloitte, and few others do, they use only 4 questions. So what are the 4 questions? Why have they suddenly become very important? The 4 questions are: I would reward this person the highest possible increment in bonus. I would always want him or her in my team. These 2 questions are rated on a 5-point scale, and the 3rd and the 4th question is rated on a yes or no. Whether the individual has a risk of low performance and whether the individual is ready for promotion. Whether one should go for performance management, the research says yes. But whether India is ready or not, I think our panelists are the best people to help us give that direction, because they know how it works in reality.
This was followed by an insightful discussion between some of the stalwarts of the human resource industry.
I'll start with my first question to you, Srirang. New age performance management systems. Is it old wine in a new bottle? Is it just a fad? Is it something everybody's talking about? Or is it the need of the hour?
I think it's a bit too early to declare whether it's old wine in a new bottle. But I think before we even call it a new performance management system, we need to understand what is new about what is being proposed. A lot of focus is on feedback, the check-in, which is today probably the new, if I may say so, the jargon which may come in. But meeting your subordinate or your team members regularly and providing feedback on an ongoing basis is what I guess is a big shift that's being spoken about. My only question is what's new about it? I don't think the old performance management system ever came in the way of giving regular feedback. And the worry is that a lot of us are focusing on, at least the write-ups are all about doing away with the bell curve. My only concern, which I'm sure we'll all discuss, is as Indian organizations, we all jumped into this bell curving bandwagon in 2000, not fully realizing as to what are the consequences of that.
Srirang speaks about the fact that is there really anything new that we need to do? So in your opinion and your experience, what are some of the key shifts which are required? What do you envisage as some future trends, and what in your mind should be some focus areas of this new performance management system?
So, one of the things that one is beginning to see in manufacturing, and it's not very different from what one saw in financial services or the services business, is the fact that today even basic things like goal setting is no more static. I mean, you don't set goals for a year. You actually go and review them every quarter, literally. The second issue that's happening is that even in manufacturing, more and more cross-functional teams working on different business projects are happening. So today, your supervisor could be from finance, tomorrow he could be from technology, day after tomorrow he could be from alternate fuels. And you've got to take feedback from all these people as part of the performance process. The third thing that's happening is that structures are no more static. They're kind of getting revised and reviewed literally every year. So at one point in time, manufacturing structures, you looked at it once in 10 years, you're probably looking at it every year. The fourth issue that's happening is the new millennium. The new millennium that's entering manufacturing is similar to the millennium that's in the services business. They're looking at growth, they're looking at a lot of feedback on development, they're looking at careers, they're looking at opportunities, they're looking at multiple career opportunities, for example. So there's lots of things happening. And a couple of things that we are beginning to do in this space are more around increasing the pitch and frequency of dialoguing, increasing the level of engagement feedback that we are getting.
One of the key objectives out of the entire performance management system is also differentiating rewards. So how is it that we deal with these linkages, whether there is a bell curve, whether there is no bell curve, but how does that linkage really happen between performance management and rewards?
The issue is not about managing performance. Issue is about differentiating and paying differentiately. So we are not talking about compensation, but we are implying and intending silently that it's about compensation, but saying that it is about appraisals. Second is the generation is changing. 80-85% of the India and hence our company, which is TCS, is Gen Y, and they don't want to be appraised in any way closer to what we have been doing so far. So management, development, please forget it. It's not going to be liked very soon. We are all going to go out of the window. And unless we change the way we measure and reward people, it's not going to work very soon. And the soon is not even 5 years. That's the prediction. So what do we do? Typically in a manufacturing organization, now even services and IT company like ours can also boast about manufacturing the BPO processes and back-end processes. So we also have assembly line operations, number of calls, number of metrics. We are and predictive and prescriptive analytics are coming into the picture. So technology will enable us to throw those analytics and throw those metrics to you as a supervisor. And even if you don't do any appraisal, it's fine, because it will show in my radar that this person has met 100% calls and 100% logs and 100% SLAs. So he's obviously going to be at the top end of the payment bracket. So this is the trend we are going to, we should be looking at, and forget about development. Nobody is interested in development, because what is development today? Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, WhatsApp, that's where the development is happening. So are we ready for this? We better be ready, because the 85% are ready to scoot the 15% out of the window.
Bertanu, I wanted to ask that to you. He mentioned that the quality of discussion, the dialoguing which you're having with the members or with the employees as managers, that brings us to the focus of development, because that is also one of the key areas or aspects. So competitive evaluation versus coaching and development. How do you bring that element of coaching into your performance management?
You know, my view is that, you have either a good system or a bad system. Now, how do you move from a, bad system to a good system? And on the one hand, all of us know that we need a good performance management system to make to create a performance culture in the organization. Now, I personally feel that you cannot completely, abandon whatever systems you have. You have some kind of system of performance management. Now, looking at the challenges that we face, especially for the future, when we talk about leadership challenges, learning and development as a challenge area, from various surveys that we see, then how do you position your performance management system to become an enabler for, to meeting those requirements of leadership and learning and development? So my personal view is that we have made it more bureaucratic, more process-driven. We have not looked at the real power of performance management and have not looked at this subject very holistically. How can we make performance management by target, not by management of target or, what we call your objectives, but how can we position this tool, powerful tool, as a management of achievements? That is the path that I shift that I would like to advocate. And if we can really do that as HR, and we have that clarity, HR leadership can work with the business leaders to create this shift, I see a huge amount of transformation.
I just want to try and bridge what Ritu said and what Bhartanu has said. And I think this whole bit around technology, the growing role of technology is going to be very, very critical, because with all the analytics, with all the data mining, with all the sharper focus that we have on numbers and data, is going to throw up a lot of information that's going to be available to the manager and the employee, both. And no matter how much tech savvy we get or how tech intensive we get, if we look at one of the first challenges of the Deloitte survey was all around culture and engagement. And culture and engagement actually comes from high touch. So I think the dialoguing will continue, but the level and caliber and the discussion will be much different from what it was happening today. So for example, if the Gen Y or the baby boomers would just, kind of swallow in everything that the boss said, the new millennia is actually going to point out to him and say, no, I think you're wrong. I don't think you know what you're talking about. Or look at my results. My results are already what they're speaking. So I think the conversations are going to be different. The conversations around development are going to be more self-development. The conversations around careers is going to be more around finding careers for himself or herself. And millennials are going to come and talk to us saying that I can't find a career in this company, I'm going to look somewhere else. And that's the frankness and transparency that's going to come in, and I'm not too sure whether we are ready to take that kind of feedback and that kind of dialoguing.
I think if I may add one more, very 1 minute elevator speech. The mindset is important. Again, I'm going back to top management mindset. When we go to campus, are we going with the mindset of selecting people or inspiring people to join? Similarly, in performance appraisal, irrespective of your level in the organization as an appraiser, are you going to evaluate or enable better performance? If you are looking at enabling better performance, then your entire body language changes during the performance dialogue. So that is more important. Instead of telling people what you should do, let us introspect from our side how to inspire people for better performance.
I really like what you say, enabling and evaluation, absolutely. Srirang, you were mentioning that there is also this concept of feedbacking you spoke about, focus on regular feedback, instead of really focusing on the process. You have any experiences from?
Yeah,
SALC?
I'll come to that. But
Yeah.
before that, I think we need to spend a little more time on. I think in a way, Ritu touched upon that. I think over the years, and that's my personal view, and others can also share their view. We have also moved and focused disproportionately on rewards as a tool for managing performance. And that's a consequence because over the years, if you see that we felt that if you were to incentivize your people well, if you were to put more monies into bonus, automatically performance will come out. And that brings us to a very fundamental issue where traditionally, if you were to go back to the Taylorian concept as to where incentives came into play, it was largely used when there was an adversarial relationship between the management and the workers, and incentives were used to release effort. Unfortunately, over the years, and thanks to various organizations that have practiced it, we have blindly used it across sectors. And today, I believe the challenge in most organizations is about release of ability and not effort. But we use incentives for that. So in many ways, I completely agree with what the so-called new performance management should be doing. The only contention, it is not new, it always was needed. We didn't do it as well. But not taking with the fact that you can't release ability through incentives. So I think because we focus disproportionately on that, I think this bell curve rating has almost become, because I know bosses will come back and say that if you don't perform well, the only tool I had was to rate you 3 or 2 in a scale of 1 to 5. But that's not why a person is not performing or not. He needs help, he needs support. So release of ability is through the investment that you have to do through regular feedback or working with the person. I think rating was largely a process of distribution of rewards. So I think that's a very fundamental point that we need to look at. So I think to that extent, I think the bell curve is like doing away with bell curve almost is synonymous with performance management. It is just a very small part of performance management.
Differentiation or not differentiation also has challenges, right? So, I mean, oftentimes you would hear managers saying that, whatever, I have given you a very nice rating, or managers would rate, and then traditionally when there was a bell curve, sorry, I'm using that term again, managers would go back to the team and say, I did a great rating, but HR did something, and finally your overall remuneration or your hike is, it can be attributed to something, some technical process which HR is running. Now we're saying we want to move away from it, we want to get into development, we want to get into coaching dialogues and etc. How do we manage employee expectations? Differentiation will come with its challenges. Anyone?
Can I?
Please.
See, whether we like it or not, performance and reward is inseparable. And perceived value is very, very important. In my previous assignment, we wanted to implement stock option scheme across levels, and even for a management trainee GET with 1-year scheme. That is the London listed stock option scheme. And then everybody said, all these young people, why are you giving stock option? Other companies are giving only GM and above. Why not you give fixed retention pay, 5 lakhs, 6 lakhs at the end of 3 years? Anyway, they will leave after 3 years and all that. So we debated, and then we said, okay, why not we talk to the stakeholders? That is the young trainees who have joined us. Do you want cash or you want options? 6 lakhs, 5 lakhs guaranteed after 3 years, or 40% of 6 lakhs, or 0 if the TSR is not happening, and maybe it can go to 10 lakhs. 9 out of 10 young people, including diversity candidates, they felt that we need stock option, number one. Number two, we have been trained to say that people will retire at 55, 60, long-term career, slow growth and all that. Today, people want to relax at 45. So quickly, they want to create wealth. So are we ready to create wealth-creating opportunity for young people and then bring the average age down, and then these things will happen? Because who am I to plan for their career up to 60, 50 years just because I have 58 years? They will move out 45 and become entrepreneurs. So are we ready to take this kind of a bold challenges and then move forward in life?
point again, we need to also look at, and I keep saying this because we need to challenge some of the discussions that happen. First of all, I don't think, at least again my view, any organization follows a bell curve. We all follow a distribution. We never follow a bell curve, and in fact, as it goes senior, there is nothing called distribution also, right? But yet, we seem to be somewhere believing, all of us believe, in India, we follow this bell curve. I'm sure most of us follow a very loose distribution, sometimes right skewed, sometimes left skewed, depending on the market. And the good news is, as you go senior, even that doesn't exist, right? So what are we doing away with is also a question.
You know, it's interesting that you say this because if you really look at correlation coefficients between pay and performance, and you look at it during good market times and bad market times, and you run it over a period of, 5-7 years, you will not get coefficient correlations going beyond 0.35 or 0.4, which is a fairly weak correlation. So we may talk about it being as a great differentiator, but actually there are many other overriding factors which actually come in, and different variables that add to the whole thing. So we talk about it, but actually, in fact, when we look at data, it really doesn't happen.
Yeah, because in the year you don't do well, you have to give bonuses because you've done well. In the year you don't do well, you have to still give because otherwise the person will leave. Yes. So you're
the employees, that is besides the point, because sometimes you'll give 10 somebody, sometimes you'll give 5, sometimes you'll give 20. That's besides the point. How much you get more than me is the point why people will leave. If I believe I should have got more and somebody has, even if I've got 100% increase, doesn't matter. You shouldn't have got 100%. So relative ranking is actually the way. And second is, seriously, on a very serious note, that I think differentiation, the companies which will do a very good job of differentiation based on the metrics and the prescriptions will obviously succeed in retaining people, and others will not. That is a reality. Today, the issue is not about retention. People are not leaving because somebody has a bell curve or not have a bell curve. People are still there. It's just that it's a rusted system and we need to change it. And today, because of the examples of services, motivation, you are standing in front of Wagah border and taking a bullet on your chest because you are motivated, inspired, love of the country. That kind of a culture, can we ever imagine to create in our corporates? Never. Their compensation doesn't play a role. Their appraisals don't play a role. So are we ready to inspire and motivate and forget about the development and management? I'm not very sure I can do it.
We also saw a slide about the frequency. So any inputs on, is it an annual, biannual, monthly?
4 times a year.
4 times a year.
Not mandated, flexible, option, do what you like. Once a year is enough.
Okay. Any other inputs?
I think once in a year. Yeah.
The assessment?
Yeah.
The assessment, I guess, 1 year appears to be a fair cycle because I think anything less than that, you really can't even judge performance. So 1 year, I think, is a fair cycle. But I guess what the new performance management at least asks us to do is to increase the frequency of feedback. Again, I believe, I build on the sports example. I guess feedback has always been given. Against formalizing sessions and calling them formal sessions, I guess will again make it bureaucratic and would create systems around it. We should definitely get more and more feedback, but I don't think we should leave it to a bit of a loose structure rather than putting formal systems and making it, and then after 5 years we'll be doing away with the system also.
Very quickly, Ruhi,
yes.
Once a year or 4 times a year depends exactly on the demographics of your company. So if you have a stable organization, same people reporting to same people, 1 year is enough. But if it is a dynamic project-based organization, not enough.
Please don't complicate further by adding one more appraisal form, leadership dialogue, performance dialogue, and so on. I have seen one guideline that 70 minutes you should do leadership dialogue, out of which 20 minutes you should talk about family first, and then second. So HR heads have got this idea that paperwork and process are more important rather than purpose. Sometimes the purpose is forgotten and process is driving you. So let us go back to the purpose for which all these things are happening. Purpose is growth, profitability, profit is not an ugly word, and then reinvest for stakeholder benefit and communities.
Excellent. So on that note, I thank all my panelists here. Very interesting discussions. varied industry inputs. I think some common themes emerging here are the need for continuing feedback, the need for differentiation, and the need for looking at this as more a futuristic development forward.